Hello YouTube, this is OJ Cubing, and today I'm going to be trying to explain how I can solve the Rubik's Cube blindfolded. Now, first of all, this video is not intended to be a tutorial. It is merely intended to be an explanation video that anyone hopefully will be able to understand, including non-cubers or cubers who haven't ever done blind before. And hopefully it should be simplified enough so that most people will at least be able to get a grips on the sort of methods that I am using. But I will probably be making a tutorial in the future, so stay tuned for that. So I know I do tend to ramble on, and so I'm going to be giving a too long didn't watch sort of explanation of blind solving. Essentially, we can track pieces around the cube. If we started with this piece here, it is the blue of the blue-orange edge. So we then go to the blue-orange edge here, which is the red and green edge. And then we go to that piece there, which then tracks it around the cube. And you track all your pieces around the cube. And then all you have to do is do very short algorithms that only swap a couple of pieces, and if we do that with each individual slot, then we'll end up putting each piece in its correct place, and so the cube will eventually be solved. Now that might be a bit confusing, so I'm going to try and explain it with an analogy. So suppose we have these cards here and we want to get it into this solved state. So we have the ace up here and then 2, 3, 4, 5 in the slots A, B, C, D and E. If we go and shuffle all of these up, so suppose the game was set up like this, where we have 4, 1, 2, 5 and 3, and we know that we need an ace here, a 2 here, 3, 4 and 5. Now to do this, we're going to perform some very simple algorithms. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to swap this piece over here in the red square with whichever slot it needs to go into. So here we need to swap this into the D slot, so we're going to swap these two around like this. From here, we're going to swap that into the E slot, so we swap these two around like this. Here, we need to swap these two like this. And then here, we need to swap these two, and that will have us into the right position. Now, by doing this in this sort of a method, we can actually create some little letter schemes for it. We know that we need to go to the D slot first, and from here, because this is a 5, we know it needs to go into the E slot. And from here, we got a 3, and the 3 needs to go in the C slot. From here, we go to the B slot, and then back to A. So from this, we can scheme a letter thing of D, E, C, B, A. So let's just write that down very quickly. We're going to first of all swap A and D. And then we're going to swap for E. So we need to swap them to E. We then go for the letter C. We swap these two. We're going to forget letter B, swap these two, and finally letter A, and that is already in the A slot. So when we open them all up, we can see that they have all got to the right places. Now this sort of a method can be applied to the Rubik's Cube. If we first of all make each of them have a letter, so I hold it with orange on front and yellow on top, and because edges and corners, an edge can never be a corner and a corner can never become an edge, we can label them separately. So for edges, I label them A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, and so on up to X down here. And for corners, again, it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way down to X down here. Now we label each sticker as a individual letter rather than each piece, because if we label the sticker and go to the right sticker place, then that means it will be orientated in the right place. And what I mean is, for example, this piece here needs to go, so it's orange on that side and blue on left side, not as blue on that side and orange on that side. So we order them in terms of stickers, and then we can follow the same sort of tracking algorithm. So for this example, we would have our buffer piece is up here for the beginner's method, and this is our B slot, and this is acting in the same way as the ace did in our card example. So from here we see that we have the orange of the orange green, and that is down here, which is known as the letter H. The letter H goes to this piece here, which is the letter L. From here we go to S and T and so on and so forth. And eventually we end up with a string of letters that we have to remember. What we do is we put that string of letters into pairs. And so, for example, here, the first two letters are H and L, which I might imagine as hell. And so if I remember the word hell, then I keep repeating that in my mind so that I remember that's the first letter. After which we've got ST, which I remember as stab, maybe. So I begin to create a sentence. Hell will go if you stab. So you go to hell if you stab someone, maybe. And if you just keep creating words out of these pairs, you eventually come up with a sentence. And then if you remember that sentence, then you know which pieces have to go where. Okay, so next I'm going to be trying to explain how I make the little algorithms that swap the very few pieces and how I can make sure that it swaps the right pieces. So suppose we are this little person here and we want to get over here to this gold star, and normally we would do that but just by walking in the direct horizontal line straight through to the star. But as you can see, in this case we have this red wall in the way, and so in order to get around this wall we're going to have to walk upwards like this, and then across like this, and then downwards like this, and there we'll have it to the star. And if you imagine these as vectors, if this is our B that we need to do, and here is going to be B as well because it's traveling in exactly the same direction doing the exact same distance, then this here would be A. And then over here, we've essentially got the inverse of A, which we called A prime. So if we walk upwards 10 steps, then we have to walk back downwards 10 steps. So in order to do the function B, we have to perform A to go up here, followed by B to go across here, and then A prime to go back down. A like that. And so this is what is known as a commutator. And these algorithms are very simple to set up. Essentially, we just do a couple of moves to set up the pieces into the right slots. We then do the algorithm that swaps the very few pieces. And then if we do the same setup moves as here, but in the opposite order and in the opposite direction, then we'll end up at our goal. So if we set up the same sort of problem as we had earlier, except for this time we are only ever allowed to swap these two slots here from A to D, or from D to A. So the only moves we can actually do in terms of swapping are these moves here, and these are going to be our B moves. For our A moves, we can move these along this line like this. Okay, so this is going to be our start off problem. First of all, we have the number 3, which needs to go into the slot C. So what we're going to do is we're going to move all of the cards over this way a little bit. We can then swap these two slots here. And even though this is in the D slot, when we move all the cards back again, as you can see, it is going to be in the C slot as it should be. Here we've got A to D because it is the 4 one that needs to go into slot D. So we can just swap these two cards like normal. Here we need to go to slot C. So we're going to move all of these over by 2 like this, so that we can then swap these two pieces here. And then when we move them back, they will all be in the right places. And that would indeed be it solved. So as you can see, we're doing some setup moves, swapping them over, and then undoing the setup moves, and that will indeed create the algorithm that should swap the very few pieces that we need. So what does this mean for the Rubik's Cube? Well, for example, one of the edge swapping algorithms we have is known as a T-perm, and what that does is it swaps this edge here with this edge here. It also swaps these two corners, so we never want to get in the way of these, otherwise we won't be able to solve the corners, but that is more complicated and will come in the actual tutorial. Essentially, all we need to know is it swaps this sticker here with this sticker here. So, for example, on a scrambled cube, in the buffer slot here, we have the green of the green-red, which is the letter T, and here is the letter T. Now, I want to move this letter up here, the sticker, up into this slot here so we can switch them, and you'll learn how to do setup moves if you learn how to do blind, but we can move it to there, and then move that up to there, and now that is in the right space. So, these were the moves we did, 1, 2. We now need to apply that T-perm algorithm that swaps these two pieces, and then if we do those moves in reverse, then as you can see, that piece will be in the right space, and now our T piece is up here, which needs to go to the letter C, which we can then go on and do the rest of the cube, and that will eventually solve all of the targets that we have. So guys, to sum up, we have learnt that we have buffer pieces that we can swap with other pieces by doing very simple algorithms like this one here that only swap a few pieces. We know that we can track pieces around the cubes so that we can build up a string of letters that will form a sentence. And then when you remember that sentence in your head, you can execute those very small algorithms and that will eventually solve the cube for you. And so that is essentially the end of this tutorial here. Well, not a tutorial, more of an explanation, of course. I hope that you now understand sort of the basics of how I'm able to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. I hope it all made sense to you. And again, I'll be coming out with a full tutorial where I'll go over how to actually make those setup moves and other funny things like cycle breaks and hitting the buffer piece, as well as flipped edges, flipped corners, stuff like that. Anyway, that is it from me today. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!